Hi, I'm Nikki. I work in student life at Inver Hills, and I'm excited to share this training with you today. It's sort of what is student life and how are we funded 101. I'm going to go over what student life is, how we're funded, and what that means. This training is ideal for students who are in the budgeting committee or student senate exec team. And also, if you're just interested in more information about what fees you're paying and where those fees go. So, getting started. Student life isn't just a department at Inver Hills, obviously, but the way that it was created within the state of Minnesota is the result of a lot of advocacy by student leaders. We are the result of students advocating at the state level for the ability to collect student life fees and to have certain types of activities and programs. And we're also the result of student advocacy year after year at our own college. Every year, students have a say in how fees are spent and what our priorities are. We exist to create an environment that supports students in a variety of important ways. And that might mean something different at each campus. So I'm going to take a look at a lot of different models of what student life can be so that you have a good idea of what student life could be at Inver Hills. From Minnesota State Policy, and as you might remember, Minnesota State is short for Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, and it's our system office. It says we exist to provide student life programming, resulting in a wide range of student activities that contribute to the educational, cultural, or physical well-being of the student body. Typically, student life funds support the College Student Association, which on this campus we call the Student Senate. They also fund student activities, student leadership programs, and they're governed by a budgeting committee, which is a subcommittee of the Student Senate. On this campus, every member of that committee is a student, every voting member is a student, but according to policy, that committee needs to be at least 2/3 students. So the makeup of that committee might be different at different campuses. However, the result is that students should have the ultimate say in how student life fees are spent, because student life fees are really designed to allow students the opportunity to have leadership, to have a role in decision making on the campus, and to have advocates who help them to accomplish those things. What that actually means campus to campus varies wildly depending on what the campus is like, how big it is, how big their student life fee and budget is, and it depends a lot on what programs exist through other areas of the campus and what the administration's commitment to. There are some other factors that will sort of guide how student life or campus life looks that we're not going to really get into as much today, just because we're going to really take a look at what it means on a 2-year college level. But your college type, university, community college, or technical college, tends to have a really big impact on how you spend those funds and on what types of activities happen. It also is greatly influenced by college location. Students pay a per credit fee, which means that the student life budget is tied directly to how many students are on campus, which is good, right? More students would mean a larger budget, which means that you have more funding to spend on more students. It does also mean that as enrollment changes, so does the student life budget, and what we can do or how we need to prioritize shifts based on how many credits students are taking each semester. The ability of a student life department is also really tied to the number of staff and the roles of those staff on the campus. In addition, student life funds might not be the only place where this commitment is happening, and so where the campus is placing priorities can also have an impact on how student life works in two ways, right? So if the campus is prioritizing a particular area, student life might not need to focus as much on that if there are other staff or faculty completing that work. Alternatively, if there is an area that has some need, student life might step in and create programming around that. And it all has to do with that balance of like what are the students' priorities, what is the history of that college, and then how can we be dynamic and adaptable each year. So I've talked a little bit about fees and tuition and budgets. And one thing that you might notice, especially if you're a student senator, is that we have a budget consultation process, and then we have the student budgeting committee, and those are two separate things. Each semester, students pay tuition and fees. So on this slide, you can see a breakdown of the Inver Hills tuition and fees, spring semester tuition rates for FY21. Your tuition is combined with money from the state, and that creates what's called the general fund. So in addition to your tuition, you also pay a student life fee, a technology fee, health services fee, a parking user fee, and then also every student at a state college pays the student association fee. It's 35 cents per credit, and it goes straight to LEADA-MEN, the two-year college student association. You can find out more about the state student association by going to leadamen.org. Today, we're going to look right at just the student life. It's a separate fund that's kept separately. Student life fee pays for activities and programs outside of the classroom. The reserves of those fees, so if we have extras left over at the end of the year, they're stored separately in a reserve balance. And then the students can access the student life reserve balance to do one-time larger projects. So that's where you're going to find things like we need to purchase a new stage for our programming area. That would be a potentially really great project for that reserve fund balance, that one-time big project space. And when you look at your fees, I think that the important thing to note is that fees are not necessarily tied, like a higher fee doesn't necessarily mean a higher total cost. There are lots of factors that go into that. So for example, the highest total cost, tuition and fees for two-year colleges in the state of Minnesota are Itasca, Hibbing, and Dakota County Technical College. But the highest total fees are Normandale, Lake Superior, and Rochester. On the other side, if you look at the lowest total fees and the lowest total cost, they are also not the same list, right? So our lowest total cost of colleges, right, on the way other side is Anoka Ramsey has the lowest cost of tuition and fees, as well as Northland and then Minnesota Southeast Technical College, whereas the lowest total fees is going to be Northwest Tech, Pine Tech, and then Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College. I bring this up because I think that it's important to understand that fees are a little bit different and function a little bit differently than tuition, and really what you are looking for is what is the end product, what's the service that you're getting, and what is that budget capable of doing. Thinking about what is an average student life department? What is an average fee? So far, all I've told you is that it varies, right? And unfortunately, that continues to be true. Something you might notice here is that campuses that are in metro areas might tend to have higher fees, whereas lower total fees are often in greater Minnesota. So higher density areas, larger campus, they also typically have multiple staff who work within their student life department, and they're more likely to be a community or a community and technical college. Smaller campuses in greater Minnesota with staff that work in another department are paid from another department but help student life function part-time or assist part-time with student senate, or technical colleges are all more likely to have smaller fees. But what does that actually mean? So I pulled together two examples of two different types of student life departments. One is Rainy River, which is one of our smallest colleges in the state. And the next one's going to be Normandale, which is by far our largest campus in the state of Minnesota. Rainy River is in International Falls, right there on the border with Canada. They are a really small campus. They have about 216 students. So Inver Hills is right around 2,500. Rainy River is significantly smaller. They have a student life fee of $7.50. But their small size of campus means that $7.50 per student goes a little less far. So they don't have multiple student life staff. They have a director of operations who serves as a student senate advisor. They have athletics coordinators, and they pull from a variety of areas to fund those positions. Thinking about Normandale, who's on the other side of that, and when I say other side, I don't mean to say good or bad. Both have value and importance, but just the opposite way of doing things. So one of the things you're going to notice about Normandale is that their fee is $4.40 versus Rainy River's $7.50, right? So their per credit fee is much smaller. But I bring this up because then you have to look at the campus size. The FYE that we're looking at for Rainy River is 216 with a fee of $7.50. That is going to make their overall student life budget somewhere around $48,000, $49,000. It's going to change year to year and based off of their enrollment. But, and while that sounds like a lot, when you look at Normandale with their $4.40 fee and a campus size of about 6,800, their overall student life budget is going to be closer to 800,000 or $900,000. So thinking about $50,000 versus $900,000, you can do a lot more with 900,000, right? And the number of students at Normandale means there is going to be a larger need for additional programs, services, etc. Right? So you need more funds to serve more students, and with that, you can adjust your fee. It's all kind of a calculus of what services do we want to offer, what are people around us offering, what are students expecting when they come to campus, and that's how decisions about funding and about prioritizing are made. Taking a look at community colleges in a similar footprint, it's really hard to compare and contrast campuses across the state. So I wanted to take a look at some of the campuses that I know personally students will tell me, I was thinking about going to this college, but instead I went there, right? So I'm looking at Century College in White Bear Lake. We're in Inver Hills, Normandale College, which is just a few minutes away in Bloomington, Rochester Community and Technical College, and St. Paul College. So when I'm talking about this, I'm trying to compare campuses in similar ways. So I'm looking both at the fee as well as the number of students there. And then I've created a theoretical student life budget. So what I did was I took the FYE for fiscal year 20, and then I used that to create a theoretical student life budget based off of the student life activity fee. Comparing to similar campuses, you can see that Inver Hills has a student life fee at $447 is really similar to the student life fees at other campuses in our area. Century, Normandale, even St. Paul College all have similar fees. However, with our FYE, our student life budget, and this is pretty close to what our actual budget is significantly, it's less than half of either that Century or Normandale, and is less than most campuses around us. So what does that mean? Century College, near us, community college, they have a large FYE and a small fee, which gives them a budget of somewhere around $850. They have multiple staff that work in a variety of areas related to equity, athletics, wellness, theater, and then student senate and leadership programming. They also maintain spaces like their Wood Duck Lounge, with an outdoor obstacle course, as well as their LGBTQ center. St. Paul College is the other side. They have average to high FYE with a low fee in comparison to other campuses of their size. They have fewer staff, and many of their staff are also working in other areas, right? So they might be in equity and student life, or might have multiple hats that they wear on campus. Because with that lower fee amount, average to middle FYE, they have a budget of around $510,000, and then they use the funds that they receive from other areas to help supplement their focus areas. They have a director of student life and diversity, multicultural program coordinators. They have a gender-based violence intervention and prevention coordinator and a student activities coordinator. In addition, one thing that I find interesting is to compare the overall fees in comparison to student life. One thing that is true is that St. Paul College has higher than average technology and parking fees, which might supplement some of those other areas or could explain priority areas, right? So St. Paul College, located right there in the middle of the city in downtown St. Paul, has almost no place for parking outside of their parking area. So they've had to invest in a parking lot, right? And in security for the campus, and that really, really impacts the student experience. So sometimes student life is not the only place where students would advocate for change. Sometimes that might take place in places like the parking fee or in technology fees, depending on what students really want to see. Rochester is the other campus that I was going to bring up to show you. The reason why I do that is Century and Normandale are pretty similar. They have lots of students and kind of a smaller fee. St. Paul College, sort of a middle-sized fee, and then supplement from other areas and just have less staff than other campuses. Rochester, they have a pretty average FYE at $3,363. They're a bit higher than Inver, but their fee is $7.80. This means that they have that they balance out to a budget that is comparable to Normandale and Century, and they are able to provide student life services that are comparable to Century and Normandale. And they typically have 3 to 4 staff members focusing student leadership and helping students participate in decision making. Comparing all of these to us. So how do we compare with other campuses? Inver Hills has a pretty low FYE for a metro school at $2,669 and a really low fee, which means that our budget is about $350,000, which means that we have fewer staff and we need to focus more on prioritizing for our campus to make those dollars spend and to make sure that we are giving our students the best overall experience. So at our current funding rate, we have 2 to 2.5 student life staff members that we can hire. And when I say 2 to 2.5, I mean full-time equivalent. So if we call a half a person, they're still a whole person, they just work half-time. With the current budget, our students really need to spend some time thinking about how to prioritize or what they want to do. If you want to change the fee, if you want to prioritize and change the things that we're doing, or or what you want to do. The world is your oyster and you get to pick what you want. It could mean a lot of different things. And this year I think is going to be really great for helping to prioritize, because when we go back to in-person classes, a lot of the work that Student Life does to build community is going to be starting over, right? We're going to have to re-recruit for all of our clubs. We're going to have to work to build some of those traditions back up. And so thinking about that now is important. So what this means is really up to you guys. We can and should be spending a lot of time thinking about what does our administration want from Student Life, what do our students want from Student Life, and prioritizing around that. The particular focus area is going to depend on the student. If, for example, we were like Minneapolis College, where we know that a larger percentage of our students are experiencing houselessness, we might spend more time focusing our efforts towards student resource and resiliency, helping connect to housing resources, emergency support, right? If we know that a large percentage of our students live in our campus dorms, such as at a four-year college, we'll probably spend more time focusing on fun community building events. Magician that's in the green room, or your musician that stops by for a concert. And so that's why a lot of times community colleges, universities, and technical colleges have slightly different focus areas because they have a different student population, right? Technical college students tend to be a bit older in age and they higher likelihood of going right into the workforce. So they're thinking about, how do I put this on my resume? What are some trainings that are going to relate directly to my work? Whereas a university college student or a community college student might have that same feeling, and so those programs should be available to them. They might also be thinking about career exploration. There might be students who are looking for a more traditional college experience, or people who are looking to network within their career field as they go on to transfer or go on into the workforce. So Student Life at the two-year college can look very different, but the focus area, like I said, should be directly tied to what the students want and what the student population is on that campus. Really, the most important thing is that we can take this time to think about how we see ourselves and how our priority areas are, so that we know that we are giving students the best experience and access to the resources, staff, tools, leadership training that they want and that they need. Thank you for listening to this training. And if you have questions, please contact us at senate@inverhills.edu. And thanks.